My sister cried in the hospital hallway for everyone to see. My mother held her like the world had ended. My father kept saying, "She's too sensitive for this. She can't handle it." And I stood 3 feet away with blood on my sleeve, my phone buzzing nonstop, and a doctor asking me to sign the papers because apparently I was the only adult in the family when something actually mattered. That was always my role. Not the favorite, not the fragile one, not the one people worried about. I was the useful one, the reliable one, the one who answered at midnight, the one who paid the bills quietly, the one who fixed disasters I didn't create. And that night, while my sister was being comforted for being overwhelmed, I was the one arranging my father's surgery, calling the insurance company, calming my mother down, and texting my boss that I might miss work again. Again. But what none of them knew was that I had already seen the bank statement, the one with my name on it, the one proving that my family had been using me for far longer than I realized. And by the end of that week, I was going to do the one thing they never thought I was capable of doing. I was going to stop helping. Not loudly, not dramatically, not with a speech. I was simply going to let them live 1 month without me. And that was all it took for the truth to destroy everything. My sister Vanessa had always been treated like a delicate glass ornament. She was 32, beautiful in that soft, expensive way people admire before they ask who paid for it, and she had built an entire personality around being emotionally overwhelmed. If she forgot to pay a bill, Mom said she was under stress. If she quit a job after 6 weeks, Dad said the workplace was toxic. If she cried at dinner because someone asked about her plans, everyone immediately changed the subject. I was different. I was 34, single, working as an operations manager for a medical supply company, and somehow I had become the emergency contact for everyone. Car broke down? Call Clara. Insurance problem? Call Clara. Dad forgot his appointment? Clara will handle it. Mom can't understand the online banking app? Clara will drive over after work. Vanessa needs rent covered, just this once. Clara will figure it out. That phrase followed me for years. Clara will figure it out. It sounded like praise until I realized it was a sentence. A life sentence. The morning after my father's surgery, I slept for 2 hours in a vinyl chair beside his hospital bed. When I woke up, my mother was sitting by the window, scrolling through photos on Vanessa's Instagram. "She posted such a sweet story," Mom whispered. I rubbed my eyes. "About Dad?" Mom smiled sadly. "About how traumatic last night was for her." I looked at her. Vanessa hadn't spoken to the doctor once. She hadn't signed a form. She hadn't even driven herself home. She had cried, posted a black and white photo of the hospital ceiling, and written, "Please respect my family's privacy during this painful time." Within an hour, she had over 200 comments. My phone had 17 missed calls from the insurance office. Mom turned the screen toward me. "People really love her." I wanted to laugh. Instead, I stood up and checked Dad's IV. That was what I did. I swallowed the part that hurt and handled the part that mattered. Dad opened his eyes around noon. His voice was rough. "Where's Vanessa?" I was standing beside him with his discharge folder in my hand. "She went home to rest," I said. He nodded weakly. "Poor thing. Hospitals scare her." I waited. "For thank you. For how long have you been here? For you must be exhausted." Nothing. Then he said, "Can you make sure your mother eats something?" I looked down at the folder in my hand. Medication schedule, follow-up appointments, insurance authorizations, physical therapy instructions, everything already highlighted by me. "Sure," I said, because that was easier than telling the truth. 3 days later, I was back at my parents' house making soup in their kitchen while my mother sat at the table complaining that Dad's recovery was making her anxious. Vanessa arrived 40 minutes late wearing sunglasses, holding a latte, and looking like she had survived a personal tragedy. "Oh my God," she said, hugging Mom first. "How are you holding up?" Mom immediately started crying. I stood at the stove with a wooden spoon in my hand. Dad was asleep in the living room. I had cleaned the downstairs bathroom, organized his medication, called the pharmacy, changed the sheets, and picked up groceries. Vanessa had brought coffee for herself. She sat down and sighed. "I wanted to help more, but my nervous system is completely fried." Mom patted her hand. "You do what you can, sweetheart." I turned off the burner. Something inside me moved slightly. Not broke, not yet, just shifted. Vanessa glanced at me. "Clara, can you bring me a bowl too? I haven't eaten." I stared at her for half a second too long. She blinked, surprised. Then I served her soup. That night, I stayed late to help Dad shower because he was embarrassed and didn't want Mom to do it. Afterward, I drove home in silence, parked outside my apartment, and just sat there with both hands on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. "Mom, don't forget Dad's appointment tomorrow at 9. Then another message. "Vanessa, hey, can you Venmo me $300? Rent is weird this month. I'll pay you back Friday." I stared at the screen. She had said that exact sentence 7 times in the past year. Rent is weird this month. As if rent had moods. As if bills were weather. I didn't answer. Then a third message came in. "Dad, your mom says the cable bill is unpaid. Can you check?" I closed my eyes. My apartment was dark upstairs. My laundry was still in the washer from the night before. There was no food in my fridge except yogurt and half a lemon. I had a presentation due at work by 8 a.m., and somehow I was responsible for everyone else's survival. I finally opened my banking app to see if I could cover Vanessa's request without overdrafting. That was when I noticed the transfer. $1,250. Automatic withdrawal. Family care account. I frowned. I didn't recognize the name. At first, I thought it was some kind of insurance payment connected to Dad's hospital bills. But the date was wrong. The withdrawal had happened 2 days before his surgery. I clicked into it. There were more. $1,250 every month. For 18 months. My mouth went dry. I sat up straighter and scrolled back. Same amount. Same label. Family care account. At first, my brain refused to understand what I was seeing. I had been sending my parents money every month, yes, but not automatically. Not this much. I helped with utilities, groceries, medical copays. I knew that. But this was separate. This was hidden. I logged into the old joint account I had helped my mother create years earlier, just for emergencies. My name was still attached because Mom had said it made things easier if something happened. The page loaded. Balance. $417.22. Transaction history. Deposits from my checking account. Withdrawals to Vanessa Marlowe. My sister. My sister had been receiving money from an account funded by me. Not once, not twice. Every month. For a year and a half. I sat there in my car under the weak yellow parking lot light, reading the screen while my body went cold. Then I saw the memo on one transfer. Rent help from Mom and Dad. From Mom and Dad. I laughed once. It came out sharp and ugly. They weren't helping Vanessa. I was. They were giving her my money and letting her believe it came from them. Or worse, letting her know exactly where it came from. My hands started shaking, but not from sadness, from recognition, because suddenly little things made sense. The way Mom always said, "Family helps family," whenever I hesitated. The way Dad told me I was better with money and Vanessa needed more support. The way Vanessa never seemed surprised when I couldn't afford things for myself. Last Christmas, I had skipped buying a new winter coat because Mom said the property taxes were due and they were short. Vanessa had shown up wearing a cashmere scarf and said, "Mom and Dad helped me with a few things. They're so generous." I had smiled. I had actually smiled. A knock hit my car window. I jumped. Mrs. Alvarez from upstairs stood outside holding a trash bag. "You okay, honey?" she asked. I rolled down the window. For a second, I almost said yes. That was my habit, my reflex, my training. Instead, I looked at my phone in my lap and said, "I don't think so." She studied my face, then nodded toward the building. "Come upstairs. I made arroz con pollo. You look like someone who forgot she's allowed to eat." I almost cried right there, not because of the money, because a woman who barely knew me had noticed more in 10 seconds than my family had noticed in 10 years. I went upstairs. Mrs. Alvarez lived above me with too many plants, loud grandchildren on weekends, and a tiny kitchen that smelled like garlic and comfort. She put food in front of me and didn't ask questions until I had taken 3 bites. Then she said, "Family?" I nodded. She leaned back. "Always family." I told her some of it. Not everything. Just enough. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "You know what responsible people forget?" "What?" "That irresponsible people depend on your shame." I looked at her. She tapped the table with one finger. "They know you will feel guilty before they feel accountable. That is how they keep you working." I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I went through every transaction I could find. I downloaded statements. I saved screenshots. I made a spreadsheet because that was what I did when emotions became too large. I organized them. By 4:13 a.m., I knew the number. $22,500. That was how much had been transferred from my account into the family account and then sent to Vanessa. That didn't include groceries, medical bills, emergency car repairs, credit card payments, the time I paid Mom's dental bill, the time I covered Dad's insurance deductible, the time I gave Vanessa $900 because she said she would be evicted. By sunrise, the real number was closer to $48,000, and I was still driving a 12-year-old Honda with a cracked windshield. At 7:02 a.m., Mom called. I let it ring. She called again, then Dad, then Vanessa. I watched the phone buzz on my kitchen counter while I drank coffee that tasted like metal. Finally, a text from Mom appeared. "Why aren't you answering? Your father needs his prescriptions picked up before noon." I typed one sentence. "I can't today." The reply came almost instantly. "What do you mean you can't?" I stared at it. My thumb hovered. For 34 years, I had explained myself. I had given reasons, apologies, alternatives, solutions. This time, I wrote, "I'm unavailable." Then I put my phone face down. It buzzed for 20 minutes. At work, I gave the best presentation of my career. That sounds strange, but it's true. Something about being furious made me precise. Clear. Unshakable. I stood in front of the regional directors and explained a logistics problem that had been costing the company nearly $2 million a year. I showed them where the system was bleeding money. I showed them how to fix it. My boss, Martin, stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. After the meeting, he pulled me aside. "Clara, that was excellent." "Thank you." "No, I mean it. We've had consultants miss what you just explained in 20 minutes. I almost smiled. Then my phone buzzed again. Mom, this is not like you. Dad, your mother is upset. Can you stop being dramatic? I need to know about the rent thing. I looked at the messages. Martin noticed. Everything okay? I started to say yes. Then I stopped. No, I said, but it will be. He nodded slowly. Take tomorrow off if you need it. I shook my head. Actually, I'd rather work. For once, I wanted to be somewhere people valued what I did. That evening, I drove to my parents' house. Not to help, to observe. When I arrived, Mom opened the door with red eyes and a wounded expression. There you are, she said, as if I had been missing for weeks instead of unavailable for 9 hours. Dad sat in his recliner, pale but alert. Vanessa was on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, scrolling on her phone. The house looked exactly like I knew it would. Medication bottles scattered, dishes in the sink, laundry piled near the stairs. A pharmacy bag unopened on the counter because apparently nobody had thought to read the instructions. Mom crossed her arms. Your father almost missed his dose. I looked at Dad. Did he? She hesitated. No, but he could have. Who picked up a prescription? Vanessa didn't look up. I did. Mom immediately said, she had to drive across town while having a migraine. I looked at my sister. She had posted a selfie from Target 2 hours earlier. I said nothing. That was new, too. Usually, I defended myself, explained, proved, corrected. Silence made them uncomfortable. Dad cleared his throat. Clara, we all appreciate what you do, but you can't just disappear. I didn't disappear. I said I was unavailable. Mom looked offended. Unavailable? To your family? Vanessa finally looked up. You're acting weird. I turned to her. Did you get your rent handled? She froze for half a second. Tiny, almost invisible, but I saw it. Mom stepped in quickly. That's not the point. Actually, it was exactly the point. I looked from my mother to my sister. How much do you need this month? Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Why are you asking like that? Curious. Dad shifted in his chair. Money is private. I almost laughed. My money apparently wasn't. Mom softened her voice, the way she did when preparing to manipulate me. Clara, sweetheart, your sister has been under a lot of pressure. She's trying to find her footing. She's 32. Life isn't a race. No, I said, but it does have bills. The room went quiet. Vanessa sat up. Wow. Mom whispered, that was cruel. There it was, the family alarm system. Whenever I said something true, someone called it cruel. I nodded slowly. Maybe. Then I turned to Dad. I'm going to reduce how much I help for a while. Mom blinked. What does that mean? It means I won't be covering extra expenses. Dad frowned. Clara, this isn't the time. That's funny, I said, because somehow it's always the time when someone needs money from me. Vanessa threw off the blanket. Nobody asked you to be a martyr. I looked at her. No, I said quietly. You just accepted the benefits. Her face changed. Not guilt. Fear. That was when I knew she knew more than she had ever admitted. Mom stood up. I think you should go. I picked up my purse. For the first time in years, I didn't feel crushed by being dismissed. I felt released. At the door, Dad called my name. I turned. He looked tired, smaller than usual. We need you. Those 3 words would have broken me once. That night, they did not. "I know," I said, and I left anyway. The first week without me was chaos. Not dramatic movie chaos, real chaos. Small, humiliating, exhausting chaos. Mom forgot Dad's physical therapy appointment. Vanessa paid the wrong utility bill and left the electric one unpaid. Dad mixed up his medication because nobody had made the chart I usually tape to the fridge. The cable got shut off for 6 hours, which somehow became a family emergency. Every problem arrived at my phone like a bird hitting glass. Mom: "I don't understand why you're doing this." Dad: "This is hurting your mother." Vanessa: "You made your point. Can you send the money now?" I answered none of them. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went home after work. I cooked dinner for myself. I folded my own laundry. I slept 7 hours. By day 4, my face looked different. Not younger, just less haunted. On day 6, Martin called me into his office. "I want you to apply for the Senior Operations Director position," he said. I almost laughed. That job requires 10 years of leadership experience. "You have it." "No, I don't." He gave me a look. "Clara, you've been running half this department unofficially for 2 years. You train people above your pay grade. You solve problems other managers avoid. The only person who doesn't seem to understand your value is you." That sentence landed somewhere deep. The only person who doesn't seem to understand your value is you. I thought of my mother saying Vanessa was delicate, my father saying I was capable, my sister saying, "Nobody asked me to be a martyr." Capable. What a dangerous word. It sounds like praise, but in the wrong family, it becomes permission to use you. "I'll apply," I said. Martin smiled. "Good." That afternoon, I blocked out 2 hours on my calendar and updated my resume. For the first time, I wrote down what I actually did. Managed vendor contracts, reduced fulfillment delays, built emergency inventory systems, led cross-functional teams, saved the company $1.8 million annually. I stared at that line. Saved the company $1.8 million annually. Then I opened my personal spreadsheet again. Family losses, $48,000. Work impact, $1.8 million. Somewhere between those two numbers, I began to understand the size of the lie I had been living inside. The next Sunday, my mother invited me to dinner. Not asked. Invited in that formal way that meant I was being summoned. "Please come at 6. We need to talk as a family." I almost ignored it. Then I thought about the bank statements. I printed them. Not all, just enough. When I arrived, the dining room table was set like a negotiation disguised as a meal. Roast chicken, salad, candles. Vanessa wearing soft makeup and a wounded expression. Dad at the head of the table. Mom moving too quickly in the kitchen. No one touched the food. Mom began first. "We feel like you've been punishing us." I folded my hands in my lap. "For what?" She looked startled. "For needing you." I nodded. "That's interesting." Vanessa sighed. "Can you not do the cold corporate thing?" I turned to her. "What would you prefer?" "My sister." The word almost worked. Almost. Dad leaned forward. "Clara, family is not a spreadsheet." I pulled the folder from my bag and placed it on the table. "No," I said, "but sometimes spreadsheets show what families hide." Nobody moved. Mom looked at the folder like it might explode. I opened it and slid the first page toward her. Her face lost color. Vanessa went still. Dad didn't understand at first. He picked up the page, squinted, then frowned. What is this? Transfers, I said, from the family account. Mom whispered, Clara. To Vanessa. The room changed. Not loudly, no one shouted, but the air became thin. Dad looked at Mom. What is she talking about? That was the first surprise. Dad didn't know, or at least, he didn't know all of it. Mom put a hand to her chest. I was trying to keep everyone afloat. With my money, I said. Vanessa snapped. You always act like money is everything. No, I said. People who take it secretly usually say that. Her eyes flashed. I needed help. You got help. You don't understand what I was going through. I looked at her across the table. You're right. I don't understand how you took money from me for 18 months and still treated me like I was selfish. Mom started crying. Dad pushed back from the table. 18 months? I slid him another page. His jaw tightened as he read. This can't be right, he said. It is. He looked at Mom. Linda. Mom's tears came harder. I didn't want to worry you after your blood pressure problems. You moved money from Clara's account? It was a family account. My income funded it, I said, almost entirely. Vanessa stood up. This is humiliating. I looked at her. Yes. She grabbed her purse. Mom reached for her. Sweetheart. That word, sweetheart. Even then, even with my bank statements on the table, Vanessa was sweetheart. I was the problem. Vanessa looked at me with tears in her eyes, and for once, I couldn't tell if they were real. You have no idea what it feels like to be me, she said. I didn't answer, because maybe she was right. I didn't know what it felt like to be protected from consequences your entire life. She left. Mom immediately turned on me. Was that necessary? I stared at her. Something inside me finally broke cleanly. Not shattered, clean, like a cord cut with sharp scissors. You stole from me, I said. Mom recoiled. Don't use that word. What word would you prefer? I am your mother. And I am your daughter. For the first time all evening, she had no answer. Dad sat silent, staring at the pages. Then he said, How much? I told him, $48,000. His face changed. Not because the amount shocked him, because he knew exactly how long it would have taken me to earn it. Dad had been a hard man in some ways, old-fashioned, proud, uncomfortable with feelings. But he understood labor, hours, paychecks, sacrifice. He looked at my mother and said, very quietly, Linda, what did you do? Mom stood so quickly, her chair scraped the floor. I did what I had to do to keep this family together. No, I said. You kept Vanessa comfortable. Mom's face hardened, and there she was, the real version. Not crying, not anxious, not helpless, angry. You have always been strong, she said. Vanessa isn't like you. I nodded slowly. That sentence had raised me. Vanessa isn't like you. She needs more. She feels more. She hurts more. She can't handle what you can. For years, I thought it meant I was powerful. Now I understood it meant I was abandoned. I'm done paying for that difference, I said. Mom's mouth tightened. Then don't expect this family to feel the same about you. I stood. That's the first honest thing you've said tonight. Dad said my name, but I didn't stop. I walked out without taking leftovers, without cleaning the kitchen, without asking who would drive Dad to physical therapy the next morning. And for the first time, I didn't cry in the car. The next 2 weeks were quiet in a way that felt almost dangerous. My family did not apologize. They adapted. Badly. Mom started posting vague quotes online about betrayal and gratitude. Vanessa posted a photo of herself looking out a rainy window with the caption, "Healing from people who weaponize money." I screenshotted it. Not because I cared, because I was learning to keep records. Dad called once. I almost didn't answer, but I did. His voice sounded different. I didn't know the full amount. I stared at my kitchen wall. Okay? I should have. Yes. He breathed heavily. Your mother thought she was helping. She was helping Vanessa. Silence. Then he said, I have therapy tomorrow. I know. Another silence. I arranged a medical transport service. I blinked. That was the first responsible sentence I had heard from him in years. Good, I said. It's expensive. I almost smiled. Most things are when the free option stops. He didn't get angry. He deserved some credit for that. Before hanging up, he said, Your mother wants this to blow over. I know. Will it? I looked at the folder of statements on my table. No. 3 days later, I got called into HR. At first, I thought it was about the promotion. Instead, a woman from compliance sat beside Martin with a printed email in front of her. Clara, Martin said carefully, we received an anonymous message this morning. My stomach tightened. What kind of message? The compliance woman slid it toward me. The email claimed I had been stealing company resources, manipulating vendor contracts, and using my position for personal financial gain. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. Then I saw one phrase. Pattern of financial control. Vanessa. It sounded exactly like her post. Martin watched my face. Do you know who might have sent this? I looked up slowly. Yes, I said. I think I do. The compliance woman said, We're required to review it. Of course. Martin leaned forward. For what it's worth, this email is vague, but we need documentation. I almost laughed. Documentation! For once, my habit of saving everything was not anxiety. It was armor. I can provide whatever you need, I said. And I did. Vendor approvals, audit trails, contract histories, email chains, budget reports. By the end of the meeting, the compliance woman looked more annoyed at the anonymous sender than suspicious of me. But the damage was done, not professionally, personally. My sister had tried to reach into the one place where I was finally being seen. Not because I had hurt her, because I had stopped funding her. That evening, I drove to my parents' house without warning. Mom opened the door and immediately looked past me, as if expecting a storm behind me. We need to talk about Vanessa, I said. Mom's face tightened. She's been through enough. I held up the printed email. Did she send this? Mom glanced at it too quickly. She knew. Clara, she was upset. She accused me of crimes at my workplace. She didn't understand what could happen. Yes, she did. Dad appeared behind her with his walker. What's going on? I handed him the page. He read slowly. His face darkened. Linda, he said. Where is Vanessa? Mom said nothing. Where is she? In the guest room, Mom whispered. Of course she was. The daughter they protected had moved back home the moment my money stopped. Vanessa came downstairs wearing sweatpants and an expression of tired innocence. Then she saw the paper in Dad's hand. Her face shifted. Just enough. Dad held it up. Did you send this? She folded her arms. I was concerned. Answer me. I didn't use my name because I was scared. Of what? I asked. She looked at me. Of you. I actually smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was perfect. After everything, she had found a way to become the victim of my boundaries. Dad's voice hardened. You tried to get your sister fired? Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. She humiliated me. I showed the truth. You always do this, she snapped. You act calm and perfect and make everyone else look crazy. There it was. Not remorse, resentment. She didn't hate me because I was cruel. She hated me because I had evidence. Mom stepped between us. Enough, both of you. I looked at my mother. No, not both. For once, Dad agreed. Linda, move. Mom stared at him. He didn't raise his voice. Move. She did. Dad looked at Vanessa for a long time. You will call Clara's workplace, he said, and tell them you sent a false email. Vanessa went pale. Dad. Tonight. I can't do that. I could get in trouble. He laughed once, bitterly. That is usually what happens when people do wrong things. Mom whispered. She was emotional. Dad turned to her. And you made that an excuse for everything. The room fell silent. I had waited my entire life for someone else to say it, and when he finally did, I felt no triumph. Just exhaustion. Vanessa cried. Mom cried. Dad looked like he had aged 10 years. I stood there holding my purse, realizing something terrible. Even when the truth came out, I was still waiting for them to become the family I needed. That was the last responsibility I had to put down. The next morning, Vanessa sent an email to my company. Not perfect, not fully honest, but enough. She wrote that her previous message had been sent during a family dispute and that she had no evidence of wrongdoing. Compliance closed the matter. Martin called me into his office again. I'm sorry that happened, he said. I nodded. Then he smiled slightly. The board reviewed your application. I held my breath. We want to offer you the Senior Operations Director position. For a second, I heard nothing. Not the air conditioner, not the traffic outside, not even my own thoughts. Then he said the salary. It was nearly double what I made. Double. I thought of the $48,000, the cracked windshield, the winter coat I never bought, the years I had lived small so other people could live irresponsibly. Martin misread my silence. Take the weekend to think about it. No, I said. His eyebrows lifted. I accept. That night, I bought myself dinner at a restaurant I had walked past for years, but never entered because it felt too expensive. I sat alone by the window, ordered steak, ordered dessert, didn't check my bank app once. Halfway through the meal, my phone rang. Mom. I let it ring. Then a text appeared. Your father says congratulations. We heard from Martin's wife at church. I stared at the message. Not, I'm proud of you. Not, you earned this. Not, I'm sorry. Just information traveling through other people. Then another message. Vanessa is very upset. This promotion is hard for her after everything. I laughed so suddenly, the woman at the next table looked over. This promotion was hard for Vanessa. My success had somehow become her wound. I put the phone face down and finished my dessert. But the real twist came 2 days later. A thick envelope arrived at my apartment with no return address. Inside was a copy of a life insurance policy. My grandmother's name was at the top. My name was listed as beneficiary. Not my mother, Not Vanessa. Me. There was also a handwritten note from a law office. Ms. Marlowe, we have attempted to contact you regarding funds held in trust from the estate of Eleanor Whitcomb. Please call our office immediately. Funds held in trust. I read the sentence 5 times. Then I saw the date. The trust had been created 8 years earlier. 8 years. My grandmother had died 8 years ago, and nobody had told me. My hands went cold for the second time in a month. I called the number. A woman answered. Harrison and Cole, estate attorneys. I gave my name. There was a pause. Then her voice changed. Ms. Marlowe, we've been trying to reach you for quite some time. I never received anything. Another pause. We sent notices to the family address on file. My parents' house. My heart started pounding. What is this about? The woman said, Your grandmother left you a trust. It was not large at the time, but it has been invested for several years. I gripped the edge of my kitchen counter. How much? She told me, and I sat down on the floor because the amount was enough to change my life. Enough for a house. Enough for freedom. Enough to explain why my mother had been so desperate to keep me useful, tired, and unaware. Then the attorney said one more thing. There is also a letter from your grandmother. She instructed us to give it to you only in person. I stared at the envelope on my lap. When can I come in? Tomorrow morning, if you're available. I looked around my quiet apartment. For once, no one needed me. No one was waiting for me to solve their crisis. No one was asking me to sacrifice. Yes, I said, I'm available. And the next morning, when the lawyer placed my grandmother's letter in front of me, the first line explained everything. Clara, if you are reading this, it means your mother kept this from you. And suddenly, the story was no longer about money. It was about why my grandmother had never trusted my mother in the first place. The lawyer did not hand me the letter right away. He placed it on the table between us like it was something fragile or dangerous. His name was Mr. Cole. He was in his late 60s, with silver hair, tired eyes, and the kind of careful voice people use when they know one sentence can change someone's life. We kept this sealed because your grandmother was very specific, he said. I looked at the envelope. My name was written across the front in my grandmother's handwriting. Clara. Just Clara. No last name, no formal title, no explanation. 8 years had passed since she died, and suddenly I could remember her kitchen like I had been standing in it yesterday. The yellow curtains, the smell of cinnamon, the little radio by the sink, the way she used to touch my cheek and say, You see too much, sweetheart. Don't let them make you apologize for it. I swallowed. Why didn't anyone tell me? Mr. Cole folded his hands. We sent notices to the address listed in the estate documents. Your parents' house. We received a reply indicating you had declined involvement. My body went still. I declined? He opened a folder and removed a scanned copy of a letter. It was short, cold. To whom it may concern, I, Clara Marlowe, decline any personal involvement in the estate matters of Eleanor Whitcomb and authorize my mother, Linda Marlowe, to receive all related correspondence on my behalf. The signature at the bottom was mine. Except it wasn't. My name was written there, but the handwriting leaned wrong. Too round, too careful, like someone imitating what they thought my signature looked like from birthday cards and old-school forms. That is not my signature, I said. Mr. Cole did not look surprised. No, he said. I didn't believe it was. I stared at him. Then why didn't you call the police? He exhaled slowly. Because at the time, the trust was protected. Your grandmother anticipated interference. The authorization letter did not give your mother access to the funds. It only redirected communication. Legally, we could not release the assets to anyone but you. But you stopped contacting me. We continued sending annual notices. To my parents' house? Yes. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. 8 years. 8 years of envelopes arriving at a house where I was still coming every Sunday to fix printers, pay bills, cook dinners, and sit at a table where my mother asked why I never seemed to get ahead. 8 years of my grandmother trying to reach me from beyond the grave, and my mother standing in the doorway, taking every letter before I could see it. Mr. Cole slid the sealed envelope toward me. Your grandmother asked that you read this before we discuss the rest. My hands trembled when I opened it. The paper smelled faintly like dust and vanilla. Clara, if you are reading this, it means your mother kept this from you. I am sorry. I wish I could protect you from what that sentence means, but you have always been the one in this family who knew the truth before anyone else was ready to say it. Your mother loves control more than honesty. She loved being needed more than being fair, and she learned very early that your kindness could be turned into labor if everyone praised you for being strong. Do not let them bury you under that word. Strong. They will use it to mean you do not need rest. They will use it to mean you do not need help. They will use it to mean you can be hurt quietly and still show up on Sunday with groceries. You were never less deserving because you needed less attention. You were simply less expensive to ignore. I left this trust to you because I watched you become the adult in rooms full of adults. I watched you clean up your mother's choices. I watched you make yourself small so Vanessa could remain delicate. And I want you to have one thing nobody in that house can demand from you: a way out. Do not tell them immediately. Do not let guilt spend this money before you understand what freedom feels like. If Linda tries to interfere, ask Mr. Cole about the second document. He will know. I love you, not because you were useful, because you were you. Grandma. I read the last line 3 times. Not because you were useful, because you were you. Something inside me folded. I pressed the letter to my chest and cried in a conference room across from a lawyer who pretended not to notice until I could breathe again. When I finally looked up, Mr. Cole handed me a box of tissues. She was very fond of you, he said. She was the only person who saw it, I whispered. No, he said gently. She was the only one who said it out loud. I wiped my face. What is the second document? His expression changed. He opened another folder and removed a notarized statement. This was written 3 months before your grandmother died. I read the first paragraph, then the second. By the third, I felt my hands go numb. My grandmother had known. Not everything, but enough. She had written that Linda, my mother, had pressured her repeatedly to change the trust. She had documented phone calls, visits, arguments, and one incident where my mother allegedly told her, Clara doesn't need help, Vanessa does. There it was again, the sentence that had shaped my entire life. Vanessa needs more. I read on. My grandmother had also suspected that my mother had taken jewelry, savings bonds, and cash from her house while she was in hospice. Not enough to prove theft at the time, enough to warn her attorney. And then came the final paragraph. If my daughter Linda Marlowe attempts to conceal, redirect, challenge, or interfere with Clara Marlowe's inheritance, I request that my attorney provide Clara with all documentation necessary to pursue civil remedies and, if appropriate, criminal complaint. I sat back. The room was too quiet. Mr. Cole said, You have options. I looked at him. What kind? We can send a formal demand letter regarding withheld estate notices and the forged authorization. We can request repayment for any losses tied to interference. We can also notify the court. My mother forged my signature. Yes. And hid this for 8 years. Yes. And during that time, she was taking money from me to support Vanessa. He did not answer. He didn't need to. For one strange second, I imagined calling Mom from the parking lot. I imagined screaming, crying, asking how she could do it. But then I remembered the dining room, the way she called Vanessa sweetheart with my bank statements on the table, the way she said, "You have always been strong," the way she said, "Then don't expect this family to feel the same about you." No, I was done bringing evidence to people who only respected consequences. "What do we do first?" I asked. Mr. Cole nodded once, as if that was the answer he had been waiting for. "We document everything." For the next 90 minutes, we built the beginning of a war I had never wanted. Not loud, not emotional, paperwork, dates, signatures, statements, bank transfers, estate notices, the forged authorization letter, the family account, the anonymous email Vanessa sent to my job. Mr. Cole's legal assistant scanned everything I brought. When she reached Vanessa's retraction email, she paused. "This family sounds exhausting," she said before she could stop herself. Mr. Cole gave her a look. I laughed for the first time that day. "She's not wrong," I said. By the time I left the office, the trust paperwork had begun. The amount was real, more real than I was ready to feel. My grandmother's investments had grown quietly for 8 years while I was eating cheap soup and covering my sister's rent. I could pay off my car, move to a better apartment, put a down payment on a house, breathe. But I didn't feel rich. I felt awake. That afternoon, Mom called 6 times. I didn't answer. Then Dad called. I let it go to voicemail. Then a text arrived from Vanessa. "Mom says you're doing something weird with Grandma's estate. Are you seriously trying to start drama after everything you've already done?" I stared at the message in the courthouse parking lot. So Mom had found out. Good. That meant the letter had arrived. Mr. Cole had moved faster than I expected. A formal demand had been sent to my parents' house by certified mail. It stated, politely and brutally, that my mother had concealed estate communications, submitted a fraudulent authorization, and may have interfered with my legal rights as beneficiary. It requested a response within 10 business days. 10 days. For the first time, my mother had a deadline she couldn't assign to me. I drove home and bought a new winter coat online. A small thing, a ridiculous thing. But when I clicked purchase, I cried harder than I had in the lawyer's office. Because I could afford it. Because nobody had to approve it. Because no one else's emergency came first. The next day was Friday. At work, the promotion announcement went out company-wide. Senior Operations Director, Clara Marlowe. My inbox filled with congratulations from people who had no idea that my life was burning down quietly behind the scenes. Martin stopped by my office with coffee. "How does it feel?" he asked. I thought about lying. Then I said, "Strange." He leaned against the doorframe. "Good strange or bad strange?" Like I spent years being proud of surviving rooms I should have walked out of. He studied me for a moment. Then he said, "That's not a bad realization." "No," I said, "but it's expensive." He smiled sadly. "Most freedom is." That evening, Dad showed up at my apartment. I saw him through the peephole, leaning on his cane, one hand gripping the railing like the stairs had cost him more pride than energy. For a moment, I considered not opening the door. Then I did. He looked older than he had 2 weeks ago, not physically, morally. Like the version of himself he had avoided meeting was standing beside him. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. He entered slowly, looking around my apartment as if seeing it for the first time. Maybe he was. My parents had visited twice in 6 years, both times because they needed something. He sat at my small kitchen table. I didn't offer coffee. That felt important. He placed a folder on the table. "Your mother got a legal letter." "I know." He nodded. "She says it's a misunderstanding." "Do you believe her?" He looked at his hands. "No." The answer landed heavily. He opened the folder and removed envelopes. Old envelopes, yellowed slightly at the edges. My name typed across the front. Harrison and Cole, estate attorneys. My throat tightened. "Where did you get those?" "In the cabinet above the laundry room," he said. "Your mother keeps old tax papers there. I looked after she fell asleep." I touched the top envelope. It had been opened. All of them had. Dad's voice roughened. "There were 7. 7 years of notices. 7 chances. 7 moments when my mother could have handed me the truth and didn't." Dad stared at the envelopes like they disgusted him. "I failed you," he said. I wasn't ready for that. Not from him. Not without excuses. I looked away. He continued. "I told myself you were fine because it was easier. Your mother said Vanessa needed more, and I let that become family policy." Family policy. That was exactly what it had been. Not love. Policy. I crossed my arms. "Why are you here?" He swallowed. "Because I don't want you to hear from the lawyer that I'm separating my finances from your mother's." I blinked. "What?" "I met with a financial advisor today. I'm moving my retirement account access, changing passwords, reviewing statements." I stared at him. He gave a humorless smile. "Apparently, I'm learning how expensive helplessness is, too." I didn't know what to say. Then he slid another paper toward me. A cashier's check. $10,000. I frowned. "What is this?" "What I can give you now." "I don't want hush money." "It's not." "Then what is it?" His eyes met mine. "The beginning of repayment." The apartment became very still. "I can't repay all of it quickly," he said. "Maybe not ever, but I can stop pretending it didn't happen." I stared at the check. Part of me wanted to refuse it, to say I didn't need it, to prove I was above money. Then I heard my grandmother's voice in the letter. "Do not let guilt spend this money before you understand what freedom feels like." I picked up the check. "Thank you," I said. Dad nodded once. His eyes were wet, but he did not ask me to comfort him. That was new. At the door, he paused. "Vanessa doesn't know I'm here." I figured. "She's angry." "She usually is when consequences arrive." He almost smiled. Then he said, "Your mother is planning a family meeting Sunday." I closed my eyes. Of course she was. She wants to get everyone together and talk this out before lawyers make things worse. Lawyers didn't make things worse. I know. He looked at me carefully. "Don't come alone." That sentence bothered me all night. Don't come alone. Not because I was afraid, because it meant my father had finally seen what I had lived with. My mother was not going to apologize. She was going to perform, and she wanted an audience. Sunday arrived gray and wet. I wore my new coat. It still had the crisp shape of something that belonged only to me. Before driving to my parents' house, I stopped at Mrs. Alvarez's apartment. She opened the door before I knocked twice. "You look like court," she said. "I might be going to war." She nodded. Same outfit. I smiled despite myself. Then I asked, "Would you come with me?" She didn't ask why. She grabbed her purse. That was how I arrived at my parents' house with a 71-year-old Puerto Rican neighbor who had known me for 3 months and defended me better than my own family had in 34 years. Mom opened the door. Her expression flickered when she saw Mrs. Alvarez. "Who is this?" "Someone who notices when I haven't eaten," I said. Mom's mouth tightened. We entered. The living room was full. Vanessa sat on the couch beside our cousin Erin, who looked uncomfortable already. Aunt Paula was there too, Mom's older sister, the kind of woman who smelled blood in family drama and called it concern. Dad sat in his recliner, silent. Mom had built her stage. She began before I sat down. "I asked everyone here because Clara has involved attorneys in a private family matter." Mrs. Alvarez whispered, "Ah, theater." I almost laughed. Mom shot her a look. Vanessa spoke next. "This has gone way too far." I sat in the armchair across from them. "Which part?" Vanessa blinked. "What?" "Which part has gone too far? The forged signature? The hidden trust? The money transferred to you? The false email to my job? Be specific." Erin's eyes widened. Aunt Paula turned to Mom. "Forged signature?" Mom's face flushed. "That is an ugly accusation." I opened my folder. Mrs. Alvarez patted my arm like a coach before a fight. I placed copies on the coffee table. "Then let's use documents instead of adjectives." Vanessa groaned. "You brought paperwork?" "Yes," I said. "That's what people do when others lie." Dad covered his mouth, maybe to hide a smile. Mom picked up the forged authorization letter and immediately put it down. "I was protecting you." That sentence was so absurd that even Aunt Paula looked confused. "From an inheritance?" Erin asked. Mom turned on her. "You don't understand the situation." "Then explain it," I said. She looked at me. I could see her recalculating. Tears would not work. Not with the documents spread out. Not with Dad watching. Not with Mrs. Alvarez sitting beside me like a small, furious statue. So Mom changed tactics. "You were doing well," she said. "Vanessa was struggling. Your grandmother never understood how fragile she was." Vanessa looked down, accepting the role like a crown. I leaned forward. "Grandma understood exactly what you were doing." Then I read from the notarized statement. Not all of it, just enough. The room went quiet. Aunt Paula whispered, "Linda." Mom stood. Mother was paranoid near the end. Dad's voice cut through the room. "No, she wasn't." Everyone looked at him. He pushed himself upright in the recliner. "She knew you," he said. Mom stared as if he had slapped her. He continued, voice shaking but clear. "She knew you would try to control the money. She knew you would say Vanessa needed it more. She knew Clara would be guilted into silence." Vanessa snapped, "Why is everyone acting like I stole something? I didn't even know about the trust." I turned to her. "No, you just knew about the monthly transfers." Her mouth shut. Aunt Paula slowly turned toward Vanessa. "You knew Clara was paying?" Vanessa's eyes filled. "Mom said Clara wanted to help." "No," I said. "Mom said I wouldn't mind." Vanessa looked at Mom. For the first time, I saw a crack between them. Small, but real. Mom rushed in. "I did what mothers do. I took care of the child who needed care." Mrs. Alvarez spoke for the first time. "No, you fed one child with the other child." Silence. Mom looked offended. Excuse me? Mrs. Alvarez smiled pleasantly. You heard me. I placed the final page on the table. This is what I'm offering, I said. Mom's eyes narrowed. Offering? Yes. You return the estate notices. You cooperate with Mr. Cole. You acknowledge in writing that the authorization letter was not signed by me, and we set up repayment for the money taken from my account. Vanessa sat forward. Repayment? I don't have that kind of money. You can start small. I can barely afford anything. That sounds stressful. She stared at me. For once, I did not rescue her from the discomfort. Mom shook her head. This will destroy the family. No, I said. This family was already broken. This just ends the payment plan. Erin looked down, biting her lip. Aunt Paula whispered, Jesus. Mom's voice hardened. And if we refuse? I looked at her. Then Mr. Cole files everything. The room froze. Vanessa's face went pale. Files with who? The court. Mom's jaw tightened. You would take your own mother to court? I thought about that. Really thought about it. Then I asked the question I knew would split the room open. What would you tell me to do if Vanessa's boyfriend forged her signature, hid money from her, and used her paycheck for 8 years? No one answered. That was the comment moment. That was the question every person hearing the story would answer in their own head. What would you do if it was someone else? What would you call it if it wasn't family? Mom looked away first. Vanessa started crying, but quietly this time. Not performance. Fear. Dad said, Linda, sign the acknowledgement. Mom spun toward him. You don't get to order me. No, he said, but I get to stop covering for you. The fight lasted another hour, not shouting the whole time. Worse, small accusations, old resentments. Mom saying I had always been cold. Vanessa saying I liked making her look weak. Aunt Paula remembering things from Grandma's final months that suddenly sounded different. Erin admitting Mom once told her I didn't care about inheritance stuff. Every sentence added weight. By the end, Mom signed nothing. But Dad did. He signed a statement confirming he had found the opened estate notices hidden in the laundry cabinet and that he had not known about the forged authorization. It was not everything, but it was a start. When I stood to leave, Vanessa followed me to the porch. The rain had slowed to mist. She wrapped her arms around herself. For once, she looked less like a villain and more like someone whose entire shelter had collapsed. Did you hate me this whole time? She asked. The question surprised me. No, I said. She looked relieved. Then I added, but I think I confused loving you with funding the version of you Mom created. Her face crumpled. I didn't know how much it was, she whispered. Would it have changed anything? She opened her mouth, closed it. That was answer enough. I walked to the car with Mrs. Alvarez beside me. Halfway down the path, she said, You did good. I feel awful. That is not the opposite of good. 3 weeks later, my mother signed. Not because she became honest, because Mr. Cole filed a petition with the court, and suddenly her private family matter had a case number. That changed everything. People like my mother can survive guilt. They can survive tears. They can survive being cruel in rooms where they control the story. They do not survive official records. The settlement was not cinematic. No judge slammed a gavel. No one gasped in a courtroom. There was no dramatic confession under oath. Real consequences are often quieter. My mother acknowledged the forged letter was not signed by me. She agreed to release all estate correspondence. She and Vanessa entered a repayment plan for the money transferred through the family account. Dad separated his finances. Vanessa moved out of my parents' house after Mom refused to pay her rent anymore because her own accounts were being reviewed. That was the part Vanessa never expected. Once my mother's money had to become visible, her generosity became much smaller. Funny how that works. Vanessa got a job at a dental office. Part-time at first, then full-time. She hated it. Then she didn't. 6 months later, she sent me $150 through a payment app. The memo said, "First repayment. No heart, no apology." But I kept it. Not because of the money, because it was proof that the world did not end when Vanessa became uncomfortable. As for Mom, she did not transform. People always want that part. The tearful apology, the kitchen table reconciliation, the mother finally realizing she had hurt her daughter. That did not happen. She sent me one letter after the settlement. 3 pages. Most of it explained how hard motherhood had been, how Vanessa's needs were complicated, how Grandma never understood her, how I had become distant and unforgiving. At the bottom, almost as an afterthought, she wrote, "I am sorry you feel I handled things poorly." I placed the letter in a folder, not the legal folder, a different one, the one where I kept things I no longer needed to carry. Dad and I rebuilt slowly, not beautifully, not easily. He came to my apartment once a week for dinner, and at first we talked like strangers who shared a past neither one wanted to touch. Then, one night, he brought a small cardboard box. Inside were photographs from my childhood. Not Vanessa's dance recitals, not family Christmas portraits where I stood at the edge. Mine. Me holding a science fair ribbon. Me asleep on Grandma's couch with a book on my chest. Me at 16, changing a tire while Dad stood nearby, pretending not to be proud. "I found these in the garage," he said. I picked up the tire photo. "You took this?" He nodded. "Why?" He looked embarrassed. "Because I thought you were impressive." I stared at the picture. 16-year-old me, hands dirty, hair falling out of a ponytail, face serious. Impressive. Not useful. Impressive. I kept that photo on my fridge. The trust came through in stages. When the first transfer landed in my account, I didn't touch it for 2 weeks. I just looked at the number sometimes. Not to feel rich, to remind myself that freedom could be factual. Then I paid off my car, fixed the windshield, paid a therapist for 12 sessions in advance because I knew myself well enough to remove the excuse before I could make it. And then I bought a house. Small, blue-gray, 20 minutes from work, with a porch, a lemon tree, and a spare bedroom I did not immediately offer to anyone. The first night I slept there, the silence felt enormous. No buzzing phone, no crisis waiting, no mother calling me selfish, no sister needing rescue, just walls that belonged to me. I woke before sunrise and stood in the kitchen with bare feet on cold tile, drinking coffee while light slowly filled the room. For years, I thought peace would feel like happiness. It didn't. At first, peace felt like withdrawal, like my body was still waiting for someone else's emergency to tell me who I was. But no emergency came. So I made breakfast. For myself. That became the real ending. Not the trust, not the settlement, not Vanessa's repayments, not Mom losing control of the story. The real ending was smaller. I stopped being the family solution. And somehow, everyone kept living. Badly at first, messily, angrily, but they lived. Dad learned his medication schedule. Mom learned that crying did not cancel court deadlines. Vanessa learned rent was not weird. And I learned that love without boundaries is not loyalty. It is slow disappearance. A year after the hospital night, my company held a regional leadership dinner. I almost didn't invite anyone. Then I invited Dad. He showed up in a suit that didn't fit quite right and shoes polished too brightly. When they announced a new logistics initiative I had designed, people clapped. Martin said my work had saved the company enough to expand 2 departments. Dad sat at table 12, looking at me with tears in his eyes. Afterward, he hugged me in the hotel lobby. He was not a hugging man. "I'm proud of you," he said. The words came late, years late, but they came clean. I let myself receive them. That was new too. As we walked toward the exit, my phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa. "Saw the company post. Congratulations!" I waited for the second sentence. The request, the wound, the subtle guilt. Nothing came, just congratulations. I typed back, "Thank you." Then I put the phone away. Outside, the air was cold. I pulled my coat tighter around me. The same coat I had bought the day the legal letter went out. Dad noticed. "New coat?" I smiled. "Mine," I said. He didn't understand why that mattered. That was okay. I did. Sometimes people ask if I forgave my mother. The truth is, I don't know. Forgiveness used to sound like opening the door again. Now I think maybe forgiveness can mean locking it without standing on the other side yelling. I don't hate her, but I don't give her my passwords. I don't answer every call. I don't explain every no. I don't confuse being needed with being loved. And I do not apologize for protecting what my grandmother tried so hard to give me, a way out. The last time I saw Mom was at Aunt Paula's birthday dinner. She looked smaller, not broken, just less powerful outside her own house. Vanessa was there too, talking about office politics and complaining about her manager like a normal, tired adult. At one point, Mom asked if I could help her set up a new banking app. The old version of me would have taken the phone before dessert. The new version of me smiled and said, "Dad can show you." Mom's face tightened. Dad coughed into his napkin to hide a laugh. Vanessa looked at me across the table. For one brief second, we almost smiled at each other. Almost. It was not a perfect family. It never had been. But it was no longer a machine powered by my silence. That was enough. Later that night, I drove home to my blue-gray house, parked under the lemon tree, and sat for a moment in the dark car. Not because I was too tired to go inside, because I wanted to remember the difference. A year earlier, I had sat in a parking lot with blood on my sleeve, my phone buzzing, and a bank statement proving my family had turned my responsibility into their lifestyle. I thought stopping would destroy them. It didn't. It revealed them. Then it revealed me. I was not the backup plan. I was not the emergency contact for everyone's poor choices. I was not the strong one so everyone else could stay weak. I was Clara. Grandma had written it that way for a reason. Just Clara. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.